Hi everyone, hope you are doing well. So here we have another reading comprehension passage, and the direction for the question is what? Answer the following questions based on the information given below. Well, we'll go for the text and we'll understand what this text is all about, and then after we'll follow the questions which have been given here uh, along with the choices. We need to find out one of the choice which will be the most appropriate to the question given above to that. Okay, so let's go to the text first. So the text begins with the spirituality. What is that? It is a vital component of life. But spirituality doesn't look the same for everyone. It encompasses various practices and beliefs that help ground people in the here and now, connect them to others and the wider world, and motivate their intentions and actions. Like many people, you might be looking for peace of mind during a chaotic time, or maybe you seek a sense of balance while trying to juggle the expectations of family and career or other parts of your life. Many of us wish to enhance our understanding of ourselves and other people. We also search for answers to questions of worth and meaning, purpose and belonging. Questions such as why am I here? So, what do I aim to do? So these are all spiritual needs and they illustrate why spiritual practices are critical today as ever. This is the first paragraph of the passage. Now, looking at the second paragraph, it is stated in many parts of the world, the obvious answer to the question of how to meet your spiritual needs would seem to be religion, where I live in the Midwestern United States. The cities and towns are dotted by striking numbers of churches, mosques, synagogues, ashrams, and other religious gathering places. Spend 30 minutes driving on any major road in my state of Michigan, and you will encounter large crosses or billboards challenging drivers to accept the truth of God. Politicians regularly vie to highlight their religious bona fides and so on. To live here is to exist in a space of religiosity, whether one believes or not. There is not just one correct spiritual path, and spirituality is not something static, but rather a dynamic, lifelong journey. So, my own journey has shifted from a traditional religious upbringing in a Jewish household to an engagement with various spiritual practices. While the lessons I learned growing up established the moral grounding I want for myself, to always treat others with a sense of reverence, empathy, and compassion. I found myself moving away from belief in God and the rituals associated with the Judaism. Neither fortified me as I encountered more of the world and discovered more about what I desired for myself, for others, and for the natural world that we blessedly call home. Through travel, conversation, and trial and error, I thrust myself into new experiences with a desire to learn. This began with being honest about my lack of knowing and making myself vulnerable to what surrounded me. As I saw others moved by the sight of an eclipse, an immersion in yoga, or the insight of an astrological reading, I came to see that spiritual practices are more than the ways people bring to life their religious convictions. Instead, spiritual practices emerged as tools of orientation and grounding. They have given me ways to deal with the daily challenges and expectations of being an attentive, full time profession, a compassionate partner, and a caring father. For instance, in mindfulness meditation, especially walking meditation, I found a way to induce calm in moments of anxiety, a method to remind myself of my interconnection with the world. Each step literally binding me to the earth and a means to bring about the peace of mind. I needed to engage in classroom conversation or be more, you can say that, um, yeah, more present in my relationship relationships, right? So this is what a kind of a passage uh, that indicate about reflective and you can say that reflective and you can say that informative one. Ref- Reflective and informative one, isn't it? So the first paragraph that provides nothing but you can say spirituality. So spirituality is, and it is stated that what it is crucial for addressing personal and existential needs, and it takes what it takes different forms for different people. Like it starts with introducing the idea that spirituality is what now you can say that an important aspect of life, isn't it? Important practices or aspect of life. Though it varies from person to person, it explains that spirituality includes practices and beliefs that ground individuals, isn't it? So ground people or individuals, correct them with others and the world, and motivate their actions. The paragraph outlines common spiritual needs, such as you can say that peace, right? Peace of mind during a chaotic time, even balance, understanding, or you can talk about what? Juggle, right? Balance, juggle to the expectation of family. And you also say that uh, understand understanding and answers to existential questions, like the questions which have been given here. Why am I here? What do I aim to do? Right? These are nothing but a spiritual needs that make spiritual practice relevant today, isn't it? So that's what the first paragraph is trying to tell. If you go with the means the second paragraph indicates about what? So that shift focus to the prevalence of religion, isn't it? So, and stated about what? Um, in the author's environment, particularly in the Midwestern United States, it describes how religious institutions and symbols are common in this region and how religion is prominent aspect, right? Religion is nothing but a prominent aspect, right? Uh, a prominent aspect of whom? You can say that public and politicians, right? So public and politicians or political life, it also highlights what? Highlights their religious um, sentiments and also indicating the contrast between the author's environment and their, you can say that a personal spiritual journey, right? Again, if you look into that, it is an observational, right? And descriptive one, observational and descriptive. So, which is analyzing and specific. So, here in the author's region, we can find out religion is a highly, you can say that visible, highly visible and influential, visible and influential, right? Which may affect how spirituality is perceived and practiced. So, that is what you find out in our second paragraph. In third paragraph, when we talk about the author reflects what? The author reflects that their personal spirituality journey, right? Personal spiritual journey. So, which begin with a traditional religious upbringing, but at the same time, you can say that, right? So, at the same time, it is also begin with a traditional religious upbringing, but evolved into a more eclectic exploration of spiritual practices. The author acknowledges the moral grounding received from their upbringing while noting a shift away from traditional religious beliefs. They emphasize that spirituality is nothing but a dynamic journey rather than a, you can say that, static, right? Rather than it's a static one, right? So that's what you would find out in a static state, which is appointed in a paragraph 3, right? So it is nothing but a purely personal one, right? The first one is a spiritual, second one is a observational, and third one is a personal and introspective. So in the form of narrative and reflective. So here the main idea stated that what spirituality is a personal evolving journey, and one's understanding of it, how can it can change over time based on our new experiences and insights, isn't it? So, and then we come to the fourth paragraph, which is indicating the author who, the, who describes how they have engaged with the various spiritual practices through exploration, and you can say that openness, right? They illustrate how different practices, such as you can say that um, the author stated about you can say mindfulness, right? Mindfulness meditation, and how means different practices have helped them navigate daily challenges and foster connection in the world, right? So in that case, yeah, so which you can find out here. Uh, then you would also find out the author shares specific example of how these practices have contributed to their um, so contributed to their personal well-being and relationships, right? That's what. So here in this part also you would find out it's a practical and experimental, right? Experimental tone that you would find out. And the style is nothing but descriptive and illustrative. So here you would find out the main idea of the text is nothing but spiritual practices serve as nothing but the tools and for personal grounding, right? Personal grounding and managing life's challenges, providing practical benefits of everyday life, right? Overally, if you observe that the passage uh, argues that spirituality is an essential part of life, essential part of human life, essential part of human life, right? Though it display differently from for each individual, it suggests that spirituality is dynamic and evolving journey rather than a fixed state, fixed state, right? And it highlights the role of spiritual practices in addressing personal needs and improving well-being. The author makes a contrast of what? Contrast their personal spiritual journey with the prevalent religiosity in their environment, emphasizing the diverse ways people engage with spirituality, isn't it? So that's what is the whole text all about. So let's come to the questions. So the first question, which is stated, which of the following statement that would most undermine, the meaning of undermine is called as a weakening, right? Weakening what? Weakening the author's viewpoint. And what is the author's viewpoint? The diversity of spiritual practices, right? So the question asked here, which statement would most weaken the author's argument about the variety of spiritual practices? So diversity is known as a variety, right? Now look at the each choice which is given here. The first choice stated, a study finds that people who follow traditional religious practices are generally happier than those who do not. Now in that case, uh, we can consider uh, the choice talks about happiness, right? Happiness. So, and traditional practices, isn't it? But it doesn't challenge the idea that different spiritual practices can be, you can say, valuable, valuable. It is about how happy people are, not about the variety of practices. So therefore, we consider that this cannot weakening the author's viewpoint on the diversity of spiritual practices. So the stated as study finds that people who follow the traditional religious practices are generally happier than those who do not. It means it comes under spiritual practices and the benefit get out of that. So in that case, it could strengthen the spiritual practices, but not weakening. So let's look at the option two. An analysis shows that spirituality is the most effective when it adheres strictly to religious teachings, right? So in that case, what does it say? Shows that spirituality is most effective when it adheres, it abides strictly to religious teaching. Now, this choice suggests that spirituality works best mm, when it follows a specific religious roots. This would weaken actually, right? because as we are asking about weakening the author's viewpoint, so the author's viewpoint on the diversity or variety of spiritual practice, right? So we need to weaken when we say that what not the diversity, but the adheres to strictly to religious teachings. So in that case, two can be called as a appropriate here. Let's look at the option 3 and 4. Option 3 stated research indicates that mindfulness meditation alone cannot provide all the answers to life's challenge. It means it talks about variety, right? Variety of spiritual practices, not only one. Um, in this choice mentions a limitation of one type of practice, mindfulness meditation, but doesn't argue against the overall idea that different spiritual practices can be valuable or not. Right. So it's more about the limits of one practice, not the diversity of all practice. Right. So, and also uh, we can say that it is telling about uh, mindfulness meditation alone cannot provide. It means it talks about variety, isn't it? So hence we can find out option 3 would be not the appropriate option to undermine it. So 4 said surveys reveal that people who regularly attend religious religious services have a strong sense of community. Now, this choice talks about how attending religious services can build a sense of community. It doesn't actually, you can say, directly challenging what the author's view on the variety and value of different spiritual practices. So hence we can find out, though four is indicating that uh, regularly attending religious services, so have a stronger sense of community. Again, we need to think of author's view on the variety and value of different spiritual practices. So this could may weaken, but not as most undermine one. So hence we can find out the correct answer is option 2 because it directly challenges the author's viewpoint on the diversity of spiritual practices. The author argues that what different practices the author argues what different practices can offer various benefits, but this choice suggests that spiritualists should follow specific religious teaching, which goes against the author's support of for a range of spiritual practices. Hence, we can find out option 2 should be the correct answer here. Hence, the answer should be option 2. Hope you understood this. That's all. Thank you.